So, and now I would like to introduce our last session this morning, this session F that we have. And this topic, this theme for the last session that we are having is living heritage, disaster management. And for this session, we have two moderators again. This is Sofia Colonius. We just met her as a speaker. And the second one is Ruta Muktupāvele, professor of the Latvian Academy of Culture and advisor to the Minister of Culture for Cultural Policy. And we have already the first speaker, and the first speech is Disaster Prevention is in Historical Districts in Japan, Earthquakes and Fires. And the speaker is Yuichi Fukukawa. Correct. Thank you. Also, professor of urban planning and design in University and School of Architecture.
Okay.
So we are again having 15 minutes each, 15 minutes or less.
Yes, okay. Last year in Cappadocia, I looked at the heavy rains caused by global warming. This time I will focus on earthquakes and fires, which are the main disaster in Japan. The Japanese Association for Machinami Conservation, of which I am a representative, discussed disaster prevention at its annual meeting last year under the theme Striving for Resilience. The association is a national organization of civic groups active in historic districts across the country, and last year marked the 50th anniversary of its founding. Today, I will report on the cases introduced in that session. Disaster prevention measures are divided into three stages: before the disaster, when the disaster occurs, and post-disaster recovery. We will look at the case of Kyoto before the disaster and the case of Makabe after the disaster. The Kyoto case focuses on how to implement disaster prevention measures when restoring a historic quarter. Makabe is a small town that was damaged in the Great East Japan earthquake and have since recovered. At each stage, the challenge is to prevent the loss of historic buildings due to disaster prevention or damage. First, before the disaster occurs, improving buildings' earthquake and fire resistance and ensuring evacuation in the event of disaster are essential. However, historic buildings are difficult to realize in the same way as modern buildings. In Japan, Japan's Building Standard Act requires the following for all buildings in urban area: earthquake resistance, fire resistance, and the site must have at least 2 meters of access to the road, at least 4 meters wide. Japan's historic cities are made up of wooden buildings like this, called machiya, townhouse. These machiya have difficulty meeting the requirement of the Building Standard Act. Earthquake resistance is controversial. Fire are easily spread from the front, and in historic cities, the road in front of the building is often less than 4 meters wide. These regulations can be relaxed in the important preservation district selected by the national government as cultural asset. However, earthquake resistance must be ensured regardless of the system. Important preservation districts are limited in number and size and account for only a small portion of historic urban areas. For example, Kyoto has only 4 important preservation districts, as shown by the red circle. But there are 32,000 traditional houses, machiya, within the city. Kyoto's machiya is called Kyo-machiya. The number are rapidly decreasing. Kyoto City has taken measures to ensure disaster prevention while not applying the Building Standard Act too rigidly. This is a pamphlet for students titled "What You Can Do in a Kyo-machiya." The subtitle is Introduction to Exemption System from the Building Standard Act and What You Can Do under the Act. For example, the double-page spread titled "Wooden Exterior Walls Can Be Legally Constructed" provides instructions how to build a traditional wooden exterior wall legally. Here is an example. This is a townhouse restoration project undertaken by a student group aiming to restore Kyo-machiya. It is called the Momiji Array Project. Momiji means maple in Japanese. This project consists of 7 townhouses, 5 of which are row houses, with a total of 15 units. Across the road, the east side has been regenerated as residential housing, and the west side as a group of shops. On the west side, the courtyard of each unit have been combined into one to create a shared garden. There is a large maple tree in the courtyard. Let's take a look at the disaster prevention measures taken in this project. First, earthquake measures. Sounding measures were taken. Sounding measures were taken, including repairing the foundations, replacing damaged components, and reinforcing the walls. Earthquake resistance is a major issue in Japan, so I'll explain a bit more. This is the earthquake resistance procedure outlined in the Agency for Cultural Affairs, a guideline for earthquake resistance measures for groups of traditional buildings. The guideline set out the principle that the most important thing is to first repair them and carry out appropriate maintenance to ensure the structure is sound. Then a seismic assessment should be carried out, and based on the result, necessary measures such as seismic reinforcement should be taken. Buildings built using traditional construction methods have the characteristics of being resistant to collapse even when subjected to large deformation during the earthquake. A seismic assessment is carried out using an unusual method called limit strength calculation. But in this project, the project has implemented the principle of structure integrity, which is circled in red in the diagram. The next is fireproof. The clay walls that make up the majority of the wall are fire resistant. In accordance with Kyoto City guidelines, in the wooden part were painted with fire retardant paint, and openings and other areas were fitted with fire prevention equipment, allowing the renovation to be carried out without compromising the traditional design. The biggest problem was evacuation. The building at the back, number 8, was not adjacent to the 4-meter wide street. Fortunately, Kyoto City had a system in place that allowed multiple buildings to be built on the same site, despite the principle of one building on one site. This is a diagram showing the alternative measures to be taken in place of not having access to road. The red text indicates fire prevention measures, and the blue text indicates evacuation measures. The most important measure is two-way evacuation. In this project, the following measures were taken. Two evacuation routes to the road were established. A tenant signed a disaster prevention agreement and conducted disaster prevention drills twice a year. And interlocking fire alarms, etc., was installed. Well, let's move on the post-disaster measures. This is the state of the preservation district in Sawara during the Great East Japan earthquake that occurred in March 2011. The earthquake's strength was lower 6 on Japanese seismic intensity scale, with 7 being the highest. Regarding damage to buildings, there was little structure collapse, but there was damage such as a collapse of mud roof tiles and mud walls. Here I will take a case of Makabe. Despite the damage caused by the same earthquake, most historical buildings in Makabe were not demolished, and all of the buildings were restored in 2020. There are also registered historic buildings scattered outside the preservation district, and these are also being restored. The strength of the earthquake and the damage to building were almost the same as in Sawara movie. Buildings that had been repaired were spared damage. Stone-built building collapsed. By 2020, most of the damaged historic buildings had been restored. The photo on the top left was taken the day after the earthquake. It's hard to tell from the photo, but both the tiles have all fallen off. After renovation, earthquake resistance walls were installed. This is the situation 3 months after the earthquake. The lesson learned from Makabe is that early decision on disaster response policies helped to alleviate the anxiety of residents, i.e. building owners, and prevent the demolition of damaged buildings. 1 week after the earthquake, the initial response policy was decided and distributed to residents. 1 month after the earthquake, a recovery survey was launched with the support of specialized staff from municipalities across the country. 3 months after the earthquake, the repair subsidy rate was increased and the necessary budgetary measures were taken. the last. It is last time. In Japan, it is predicted that there is an 80% chance of major earthquake occurring in the Nankai Trough, South Sea. Nankai Trough within the next 30 years. The earthquake could also trigger an eruption of Mount Fuji. Many historic cities are located within the area where damage is expected. In order to increase the resilience of historic buildings, in addition to narrow disaster prevention plan centered on evacuation, it is necessary to implement the following measures mentioned above. Compiling detailed record like medical carte for each historic building, considering and implementing effective seismic repair and reinforcement methods that do not damage historic buildings, but like Kyoto, providing the necessary budget for restoration. And the most important, what is most important is to regularly engage in community development and total regeneration activities that utilize historic buildings. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was also a very valuable experience that you have in Japan. And now we will have experience from France, some examples of flood and fire risk management encountered in historic centers in France by Antoine Pougerol, architect and heritage planner, and vice president of CIVVIH.
Thank you. You can read in English and speak in French. En tant qu'architecte, donc, je regarde des questions pratiques et confronté après avec la théorie. Nîmes est une ville qui est née avec l'eau et qui devient maintenant menacée par l'eau. Les éléments qui font la valeur de la ville, les composantes de valeur, les monuments antiques, des remparts dans une ville de 220 hectares, une ville du Moyen-Âge réduite à 40 hectares, des remparts qui deviennent des canaux, un grand projet au XVIIIe siècle, un XIXe siècle néoclassique et au XXe siècle, des inondations. Un peu de morphogénèse. La ville antique, qui est la plus grande, se réduit au Moyen-Âge à la petite enceinte, avec au-dessus les fortifications du XVIe siècle et un fort qui surveille la ville dans laquelle il y a une population en partie protestante. Le grand projet d'aménagement du XVIIIe siècle, avec un très grand jardin public, l'un des plus grands premiers jardins publics de France, qui est conçu comme un jardin de château, mais qui est surtout un réservoir d'eau pour l'industrie textile. Une valeur hydraulique et urbaine, parce que cette eau s'inscrit dans la composition urbaine du XVIIIe siècle. Un système hydrographique karstique pour la source, cette source qui est à l'origine de la ville. Une ville qui se situe dans une cuvette entourée de collines, qui forment un impluvium. Et un événement dramatique, l'histoire nous montre qu'il y a récurrence d'événements tous les 60, les 100 ans, mais la mémoire les oublie vite. En 1988, de grandes inondations, suivies en 2005 et 2014. Attendez, hop, pardon. Excuse me, je suis perdu. Oh, je ne sais plus où je vais là. Oh, non, 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 je ne sais plus. Excuse me. Ah. J'ai pas... I lost the direction. Yes. Plus doucement. Le système karstique, la ville dans une cuvette, les inondations, les derniers accidents récents, la structure de la ville ancienne avec la source qui est à l'origine de la ville, l'aqueduc qui arrive du pont du Gard, 40 km, et ce qu'on appelle un cadero, comme un oued, Wallis in English. Le bassin versant, ces phénomènes d'inondation doivent être regardés à l'échelle du territoire et non pas seulement sur la ville. Le bassin versant avec plusieurs cadereaux. Il faut regarder en amont et en aval. Contrôler le développement urbain qui artificialise le sol, la perméabilité des espaces publics, et on a développé un plan d'urbanisme topographique. Voici le schéma du territoire avec les cadereaux. On est dans une Méditerranée, un territoire de garrigues avec des pierres, un système karstique et des orages violents. Le programme, c'est réaliser des bassins de rétention, dégager les oueds, les cadereaux qui ont été encombrés par des constructions et maîtriser ces flux, ces courants d'eau. Donc ça, c'est uniquement pour le centre-ville, 72 000 pour le centre-ville, mais vous voyez un programme sur 40 ans avec presque 1 million par an d'investissement pour réaliser tous ces travaux. Ces travaux avec tout un travail de médiation, de communication avec la population par les systèmes de Instagram, Facebook, des alertes, et également l'intelligence artificielle qui est utilisée pour calculer le risque, pour prévenir le risque. L'importance d'intégrer une structure a été créée spécifique pour contrôler, suivre et accompagner. Cette image, pour vous montrer le cas d'Aigues-Mortes, qui est juste en dessous, où on voit sur la carte comment les cordons littoraux se sont développés jusque, vous voyez, du XIIIe siècle à nos jours, en se refermant vers le bas. Et en bas, la dernière carte de submersion qui est annoncée dans 50 ans. Un autre exemple à Bayonne, dans un centre historique, où là, je vais vous évoquer le risque incendie. Une forteresse militaire à la limite de la frontière espagnole, construite par des charpentiers de marine, avec de la pierre et du bois, un développement urbain dans les murs qui fait que les maisons vont être surélevées et encombrer les cours, avec ce qu'on appelle les appartements à deux clés. Un appartement avec la partie vie sur la rue et la partie nuit sur l'arrière de l'escalier. Et un édit de Louis XIV, comme c'est une place militaire, vous devez construire des façades de pierre pour éviter l'incendie. Et en fait, souvent, ce sera de la fausse pierre avec un enduit qui limite. Une architecture civile qui est riche, avec des modèles surtout en bois et des interventions contemporaines. Oh, pardon. Ah, j'ai perdu encore. Non, j'ai perdu again. I lost again. Excuse me. Too quick. Yes, one more. Hop. Yes, des décors intérieurs, riches décors intérieurs. Et vous voyez ici un parcellaire en lamelles avec en couleur la zone qui est risque pour l'incendie, parce qu'elle est enfermée dans le cœur d'îlot. Également un plan avec un extrait du master plan qui montre les immeubles protégés et les escaliers. Donner du sens à la ville et lutter contre l'insalubrité est un vrai sujet. Pour conserver la ville et la mettre en valeur, il faut en démolir 25%. Le jaune signifie démolition et les ronds sont les escaliers de valeur. Et on fait une règle avec deux types d'escaliers. Les escaliers qui sont immeubles dans les parties protégées, qui sont maintenus, et les escaliers qui sont considérés comme des meubles, qui peuvent être démontés et qui doivent être réutilisés dans les projets, avec ici en jaune les parties à démolir. Une étude qui a été faite avec les pompiers pour prévenir quelles sont les rues à risque en fonction des moyens d'accès, des échelles ou des véhicules. Et en fonction de cette carte et des risques, on va étudier les projets. Contrôler le programme d'aménagement, on peut imposer les types de logements, éviter la division de logements, ne pas aggraver le risque. Des extractions naturelles des fumées, des alarmes sonores, contrôler les conditions d'évacuation, une ventilation naturelle des escaliers et, si possible, une ventilation transversale. Voilà un exemple d'intervention. Vous voyez la partie démolie et la réalisation. Un autre exemple, où ici, les sanitaires ont été transformés en escaliers de secours. Qu'est-ce qu'il faut savoir? Comment développer la connaissance avec une approche multidisciplinaire? Je vais répéter ce que beaucoup ont dit déjà. Au-delà de la pratique, la question de la théorie, quelle évolution est possible? Quelle transformation on peut accepter? Le risque est très fort pour les villes anciennes qui sont prises dans des fortifications où les maisons vont se développer sur des petites rues. Et pour l'inondation, le risque est dans les aménagements de paysages, parce que les interventions ont un fort impact dans les sites. Trouver une claire expression de ce qui fait la valeur de ces composantes aux différentes échelles, le paysage, la ville, l'architecture, son décor, pour appréhender au mieux la substance patrimoniale et définir la notion d'intérêt public, de bien commun, qui est supérieur à l'intérêt privé et qui permet de fixer des règles sans qu'il y ait de problème. Je vous ai présenté cet exemple de Bayonne avec les escaliers qui peuvent être soit démontés, soit utilisés. Merci. Allez, le temps.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much. Please stay close to the front. And I would like to invite the next speakers. Are you going to be two? Yeah. Good. And the topic is the village of Risa and Lesbos, Greece, a case study on failed management of a heritage site post-earthquake. So it's Eleni Athina Angeli and Yorgos Kourmadas from Greece.
The two new Greek members of CIVVIH, and we're really happy to be here with you today and all these days in beautiful Kuldīga. We will talk about a case study of the village of Vrissa on Lesbos. Vrissa is Yorgos' mother hometown, so this presentation carries an emotional, a sentimental load for him, and he will explain everything to you. And as you will see, in a sharp contrast to what Japan did, in Greece we were not prepared to face such a disaster, although we are one of the most seismogenic countries in the world. So, Vrissa, as I have already mentioned, is a historic village on the island of Lesbos. Lesbos is situated on the North Aegean, and Vrissa, as you see, the red point, is on the south part of the island. Here you can see an overview of this historic village, which is really close to the sea, and a river passes by that you will understand how it impacted the earthquake. The local architecture of Vrissa, Vrissa has a building stock dated from the late 19th century, between 1870 and 1930. And this is because the earlier phase were almost completely destroyed in the island, because there was another great earthquake in 1867 on the island of Lesbos, which torn down everything. And the previous phase was of this Ottoman style. And after that, I have to mention that Lesbos was Ottoman until 1912. And after the destruction, as happened in many islands on Greece and other places, in an attempt to find a new identity after the Ottoman era, they decided to adopt the neoclassical style. It was the neoclassical era in Greece too. And after that, there was an economical boom in the island due to the olive oil industry and the soap factories. You see, we have great industrial heritage examples on the island, on the whole island of Lesbos. And this is shown in the capital of the island, Mytilene, which has an amazing public architecture of neoclassical style, and also we have amazing mansions of the new wealthy milieu that are they are constructed and designed by renowned and trained architects. But on the contrary, on the countryside and on Vrissa, we have that kind of neoclassical type, but in a more vernacular and simple way of anonymous designers. And one morphological thing that the inhabitants of Vrissa are very proud of, and were very proud of, was that we call them souvelikia, which is the traditional curved stone frame of doors and windows, that they usually have this simple form, but you can find them in a more elaborate and decorated types. I think this is my alarm. I'm so sorry. Yes, can you continue?
Okay, hello, I take on. So I would take it on from here anyway. So the earthquake happened in the summer of 2017. It was the epicenter was at this yellow star you see there, 5 kilometers in south of Lesbos, south of the town of Plomari. And it was 6.3 on the Richter scale. As you can see, Vrissa is the red dot. It was not the closest location, but it was the most impacted by the earthquake. It was completely devastated, whereas in the other parts of the southern part of the island, there were only sporadic destructions. This is partly because Vrissa is built next to this river stream, and its central area is built on loose sediments. And there are So you see here some images from the earthquake. Overall, in the island, 300 buildings were deemed that had to be demolished, and in Vrissa alone, 268 of them, out of almost 700 buildings in total. So it was a very big destruction. A part of the destruction was revealed after the earthquake happened, and we saw how the buildings were built. Despite their neoclassical appearance, inside they were built with large river pebbles and just clay instead of lime mortar. It's interesting to note that in Vrisa, like talking to old people, houses, like in many places of Greece, were a dowry to daughters when they were getting married, and people who were farmers in Vrisa used to go to the olive fields in the morning with a donkey and come back to their house and load some stones on a sledge, like for years until their daughter was to be married, and they could use the stones to build the house. But it was very bad for earthquakes. Another reason was that there were a lot of, even though it's a seismic island, people did not know what a compatible construction is for an earthquake, or they forgot about it, like we'll see. So there were a lot of concrete elements. Some very typical were these concrete balconies in houses that were built in the early 20th century. And when the earthquake happened, they were very rigid and heavy, and they rammed the top floor of the buildings. We have a lot of examples of this, like buildings that had to be demolished just because of this tiny balcony. And in other cases, it was like building annexes, like my grandparents' house. My grandfather had built a concrete kitchen anchored on the stone building, and it completely destroyed it, and we had to demolish it. But on the other hand, we saw something that was forgotten, that in the interior of the masonries, in the older buildings, there was this anti-seismic traditional system, similar to things you see in Lisbon, like a time frame, a wooden timber time frame that was completely invisible because it was inside the masonry, and in most cases, it was only on the top floor, but in some cases, the whole building was like this. And this prevented buildings from collapsing and helped people escape. And actually, there was only one victim in a newer building. She was asleep because it was like a siesta time at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Yes? Okay. It's called Frigia in Lesbos, this system, and it was only attested in another village at the other part of the island, but now we saw it also existed in Vrisa. Here you see some images from the earthquake. After the earthquake, yes, it was really a very big destruction scene. All these beautiful neoclassical houses were gutted. And the little shops, a lot of these buildings were abandoned because Vrisa was like elderly people's village mostly. And so a lot of these shops and cafes that in the past existed but were not longer in use. And the social life of the island, of the village came to a halt. The school was destroyed. The church was very damaged. You could see like images of these houses like with everything inside, but nobody could use them. And on the bottom left, you can see Vrisa was and still produces bricks from clay, and we saw that a lot of them were embossed with the name of the village. And it was very devastating for the population. This is a photo from 2016. All these old women that were hanging around and had a vibrant social life had to be evacuated. They went to Mytilene, to the villages like a beach resort, or to Athens if their children were there, and really their deaths accelerated in the ensuing years. So many of them passed away because of losing their house and their social life. So we did a lot of grassroots things to try to help Vrisa and help preserve its heritage. And me and Elena even did like a lot, like building cards for all the village, and we took them to the Ministry of Culture to say, let's see which buildings should be saved and which not, because there were only like 4 listed buildings before the earthquake. But all this was not useful at all, because the only authorities in Greece competent for such a situation are the Ministry of Culture for the heritage, and this General Directorate for Natural Disasters Aftermath Recovery of the Ministry of Infrastructure that basically manages everything. And Vrisa was treated like a destruction area instead of a heritage area. And there was all this crazy bureaucratic thing that I don't want to get into. It was impossible to save the buildings or to build new buildings, and it still is. And buildings were assigned by this commission of the Ministry of Infrastructure as not damaged that can be repaired, and that have to be demolished, that was almost 270, and can be rebuilt and compensated for. But compensation was very low for the repairs and much bigger for the demolished buildings. They gave a bonus in Vrisa because it's a heritage village, but it was again much more for the reconstructions. Before the earthquake, it was declared like a traditional settlement according to a law of 2002 that saw some building regulations and repair regulations, but nothing prepared for a total destruction of the village. So there were some ad hoc laws after the earthquake. And you can see here, before and after the earthquake, how the urban tissue is completely emptied in the central area. And what about the listed buildings? So the Ministry of Culture took 2 years to declare another 15 listed buildings and another 3 years to find the money for some temporary measures of protection. But these buildings cannot wait. And all of these 3 buildings had to be demolished. And a lot more, like all the damaged listed buildings had to be demolished except for 2. I will show you this one to see how irrational decisions are taken because of bureaucracy. So this building that nobody in the village, they still say, why did we have to scaffold this building? I don't get it. And all the other beautiful houses had to be demolished. So the Ministry of Culture, after all these years, gave 65,000 euro for this scaffolding that costs approximately 10,000 euro. There's a lot of corruption there. And the owner will get about 30,000 euro subsidy for like a 20 square meter, 2-floor building, like 40 square meters. You can buy in Lesbos a new house with this money because it's a cheap place. So we spent all this money for nothing. And and here you see, I was there last week, some images before and after. This is the main square called Platanos, the plane tree, before and after. There is nothing left almost, but new buildings have started to sprout up in a concrete frame with a relative, like they follow this 2002 law, so they follow some building regulations for morphology. Again, you see, but there's nothing about the public space, there's nothing about infrastructure. It's treated like a compensation of owners scheme, not as a heritage planning, no heritage planning at all. And here you can see like the results, trying to imitate what was there, but not getting there exactly. This is someone who decided to build something irrelevant in the middle of the village, okay? And because even though it's a heritage village, yes, I'm there. It's not exempt from any building regulations like energy efficiency, so most owners did this external thermal insulation facade, and if you go and touch the buildings, there's clock, 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 clock. It's like an egg that has gotten bad. Yes, it's really fake. So we got from this very solid and material architecture to this something from a foamy material. And this owner tried to imitate exactly what was there, but still it's made in foam. I don't know if it will be there in 20 years, this facade. And still they haven't lifted the emergency status, so no shop can open. The inhabitants live there, some of them, like 100 out of 600 that were there before the earthquake, like illegally. But also no measures are taken to demolish these buildings or to prop them up. So it's a dead end, and the inhabitants are really angry, mostly because all they care is when they will organize the 15th of August party. They don't really care about heritage, but still it's a legit concern to have a social life in this village that is so important for them. And okay, I have some conclusions, but I think you got them already. And
as a closure, we would like to dedicate this presentation and pay homage to our late Professor Irini Efesiou, who was a member of ICOMOS for many years, and she really helped us with the Vrisa project. Thank you.
Apkaristo. Thank you very much. So totally different experience than from Japan. Please stay somewhere close because we will need to ask you some questions a bit later. And now we will have another presentation the last one for this morning and this meeting and conference, and that is in integrating intangible cultural heritage into urban planning as a strategy for sustainable development and post-crisis urban recovery by Ganna Arzili.
Yes, thank you. Dear participants of the conference, I'm also a new member in this committee, and let me to present my topic. So, the modern urban environment reflects all the social, cultural, economic, and technological processes taking place in society. According to the EU Work Plan for Culture for 2023-2026, this includes armed conflicts and outbreak of terrorism, the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic of society and the cultural sector of the economy, climate change and biodiversity loss, man-made and environmental disasters. Contemporary globalization of social development encompasses all spheres of human activity, leveling the distinctions of place and time. At the same time, there is transformation of national and cultural values, a shift in society's spiritual and moral guidelines, as well as erosion of cultural identity and loss of cultural diversity. In architectural and urban planning practice, a technocratic approach prevails, focused exclusively on shaping the material component of the urban environment and ensuring utilitarian conventions, regulated by form and construction standards for design. The spiritual component of the urban environment linked to human psychology, as well as a collective individual form of thinking, fades into the background. The spirit of the place, its means, role, and significance are ignored. If cities do not condense and do not nourish the spirit of the place on which they were historically formed, they lose their meaning, their cultural and national identity. There is seeking and development of new strategic approaches to shaping the urban environment as a space endowed with cultural and symbolic meaning is becoming particularly relevant. According to the Davos Baukultur Alliance 2023 Founding Act 2023, there is a pressing need of a holistic, culturally rooted approach to shaping the place where society lives. Cultural heritage is the most important component of the quality of cultural heritage of place, and intangible cultural heritage is an important resource for sustainable development. At the same time, the population and the urban environment must be regarded as a systematic whole in which they are seen not only as material entities, but also as bearers of spiritual values, organically connected with each other, both emotionally and spiritually, and existing in direct proportional dependence. Thus, the urban environment combines material and spiritual principles. The spirituals of urban environment is an integral collection of social significance information about historical facts and events, biographies of notable individuals reflected in myths, legends, stories, and narratives, which are part of the intangible cultural heritage of humanity, characterizing a specific territory and its meaning. The spirituality of the urban environment forms the basis of the ethnogenetic memory of a place. It's for something. I should. Just one moment. The spirituality of urban environment is that either cement or fragments society, by shaping the conscience of the population, the spirituality of the urban environment becomes a powerful cohesive force informing the mentality of society, the nation, the spirit of the people. In this context, against the backdrop of globalization, it is necessary to highlight certain cross-cutting elements that remain unchanged, ensuring the implementation of the principles of cultural continuity as an integral socio-cultural phenomenon and saving as an expression of the soul of the nation. Myths as a form of preserving and transmitting the genetic memory of the ethnos, its social information, intellectual, moral, and aesthetic experience, as well as the spiritual level of its culture, constitute the foundation of the ethnogenetic potential of place, namely the myphotoponymic potential. The myphotoponymic potential, which reflects the genetic code of the nation and is part of intangible cultural heritage, acquires paramount importance as a factor in preserving the national uniqueness of a territory, its self-identification, cultural identity, and is a driver of a sustainable and inclusive urban environment. The concept of myphotoponymic potential, introduced by the author, differs from the notion of cultural space as defined in the Conventions for the Safeguarding of the Intangible Cultural Heritage 2003. Cultural space are considered primary in connection with intangible practices. Their space itself not significant, but rather serve as a setting for living heritage. By contrast, myphotoponymic potential is characterized by the fact that myths, diverse in context, are often linked to specific point in the urban environment through toponymy. Here, space or place itself acquires crucial significance. Thus, the source of myphotoponymic potential is folklore localized in specific territories, which identifies the genealogy, the spirit of place, as reference in the Kimberley Declaration, 2003 Shan Declaration, Quebec Declaration, and another. Thus, myphotoponymic potential is an independent category. Given the periodic shifts in the attitude of public and political structures towards the nature of myths manifested in the urban environment through myphotoponymic potential, myths are regarded as a criterion factor in the management of territorial planning process. Their consideration is deemed necessary in addressing the following urban planning tasks: functional zoning of territory, contributing to the establishment of planning restrictions, appropriate types of activities, and the regulation and functional zoning within the urban environment. Defining the semantic actual of architectural object and public space, organizing urban development, addressing issues of urban aesthetic, and enhancing the figurative national branding of a territory. Thus, in addition to urban planning, natural, climatic, socio-demographical, and scientific technical factors shaping the urban environment, myphotoponymic potential, reflecting the value of material and spiritual culture of a place, serves as an important cultural factor of formation of sustainable and cultural inclusive urban environment, as well as a tool of urban planning regulation. A review of documents of special planning and management within policy framework of EU legislation, European Special Development Perspective, Territorial Agenda 2030, A Future for All Space 2020, Urban Agenda for EU, as well as national laws in the field of architecture, urban planning and cultural heritage protection, has shown that architectural and urban planning practice primarily safeguards only tangible cultural heritage. Intangible cultural heritage, by contrast, is not considered or recognized as an important city-forming and town-shaping factor, nor as a factor in preserving the national identity of a territory. In fact, this cannot be incorporate into national legislation, since the date there are not concrete methodologies or tools for integrating intangible cultural heritage into urban planning process within international agreements of ICOMOS and UNESCO. Up to the present time, this aspect have not been fully reflected in the professional activities of architects and in international and state body responsible for the preservation of intangible and tangible cultural heritage. In particular, in the international agreements regulating the relations of state in the field of architectural heritage protection. The documents do not establish a complex of qualitative and quantitative indicators and requirements that regulate the accounting of intangible cultural heritage as a factor of territorial planning. Intangible cultural heritage, its protection and preservation, ensured only by holding cultural and artistic events. However, it's not that the intangible cultural heritage is a guarantee of further development of the cultural diversity of territories. Thus, municipalities, architects, and territorial planners lack digital solutions and methodological for integrating intangible cultural heritage into urban planning. There is no database of myphotoponymic potential as a normative and analytical resource. Standards and educational programs are also absent, which limits innovation in the field of culture-oriented urbanism. As a result, the transition of new paradigm of sustainable urban development, where cultural memory serves as a fundamental resource of growth, is obstructed. At the same time, recognizing intangible cultural heritage as a driving force of sustainable development, and in response of UNESCO call for the integration of intangible cultural heritage into urban planning process, there arises a need to develop a sustainable culture-oriented urban strategy. This strategy must be based on new methodologies, tools, and mechanisms for incorporating intangible cultural heritage into urban policy, legislation, and architectural and planning practice. Thus, the main goal of the development and implement a scientifically based, scalable, and adaptive system for integrating intangible heritage, in particular myphotoponic potential, into urban planning system. We'll create a system integration intangible cultural heritage for 4 levels. Scientific and methodological, instrumental, normative, legal, and education and institutional level. Scientific methodological level, this involves the development of new scientific approaches, concepts, and methods for the systematic integration of intangible cultural heritage into urban planning practice. Have been developed methodological principles for the information of a city environmental based on object of myphotoponymic potential. Was created a model that reflects the structural and functional interdependence of type of myth with elements of the urban construction system, which determines the morphological means of forming mythotoponymic potential and is the base of the formation of functional urban planning and architectural spatial structure of the urban environment. The model liturgy determines the regulation of the use of the urban environment, regulation functional zone, and contributes to the formation of planning restriction of relevant types of activity. Word formulates the main methods of assessing the mythotoponymic potential, which consists is considering a place in the urban environment as a set of semiological characteristics of the place, palimpsest. The selection of the dominant mythotoponymic potential in the urban environment depends from the social order, political task, and the maximum emotional impact on the population and person. The application of the model of the system of special meaning palimpsest to urban environment contributes to the revival of the national identity of the territory. Have been development features of taking into account the mythotoponymic potential in architectural and urban planning activities, which consist in the realization of mythotoponymic potential in different levels of territorial planning. State, mythotoponymic area, regional, mythotoponymic zone, and local object of mythotoponymic potential and their protection zones. Also, at this level, a system for accounting for intangible cultural heritage into urban planning also been developed. If we activate this potential inside historical part of city or outside, how we should work with this potential. So next level, it's instrumental digital level. This level envisions the development and implementation of fundamentally a new type of scientific and project document within the structure of urban plan and documentation, a mythotoponymic reference plan, which is subsequent integration into urban 2D and 3D town planning cadastre as a functional and regulatory tools of spatial planning and regulation. This new type of GIS-based documentation reflects information about their different type of mythotoponymic potential, their localization and distribution within a given territory, their level of significance, and the boundaries of their protection zone. Incorporating the mythotoponymic reference plan will facilitate the establishment of planning construction for appropriate type of architectural and urban planning development activities, as well as the regulation of functional zoning in the urban environment in accordance with the ethnogenetic memory of the place. Within the urban planning cadastre system, the mythotoponymic reference plan also makes it possible to actively integrate the spirit of place into processing of urban recovery. The document will be used in the preparation of urban planning condition and restriction, as well in a formulation of design segments. This is fundamentally different document in contrast to scientific and design document that exist in different countries around the world, such as historical and architecture supporting plan in Ukraine, for example. In each country it has own name. In particular, the historical architectural supporting plane focused on the urban plan and fixation of tangible cultural heritage and information about immovable cultural heritage object and associated historical buildings, lands of historical and cultural significance, location of lost buildings, structures, defensive, fortification with important historical or urban planning value. However, it does not include an intangible cultural heritage, mythotoponymic potential, which are important city forming and city creating factor. In this level, also instrumental level of integration also envision improving the structure of digital 2D and 3D urban planning cadastre through the creation of unique database of morphotoponic potential of a territory, which currently does not exist in any urban planning cadastre of any countries in the world. The information base for database of morphotoponic potential consists of data contents of in folklore archives, art history archives, ethnography archives, and archaeological archives of countries worldwide. The inclusion of intangible cultural heritage in the urban planning cadastre ensures that information about it will be preserved not only in national folklore archives, but also within the urban cadastre system. This, in turn, will safeguard intangible cultural heritage as a foundation of the soul of the nation, its traditional and culture, while providing a reliable storage system that allows for repeat and assured restoration of national and cultural identity in territories of significant social, cultural, and historical value of the nation in case of destruction caused by armed conflicts. In the process of territorial recovery, it's essential to restore the soul of the nation. The integration of intangible heritage into urban planning plays a decisive role on this effort, as it's impossible to rebuild territory without simultaneously reviving the spirit of place, which is intrinsically linked to the soul of the nation. Recognizing this connection is crucial. Without it, there is a risk to create a soulless and faceless environment where people lose their sense of belonging and their emotional bond with the urban environment. 1 minute. And normative legal level. This level, the modernization of the territorial and urban planning system is envisaged through the development of strategic recommendations for improving legislation in the field of architecture, urban planning, cultural heritage protection, and building regulation. Particular attention is given to the institutionalization of morphotoponic potential as a mandatory element of the normative legal framework. Education, institutional level. At this level, the institutional and educational foundation is established for the sustainable integration of intangible cultural heritage into urban and urban planning practice. This level focuses on the training of specialists, the formation of expert communities, and the creation of conditions for the continuous exchange of knowledge between government, academic, municipal, and private institutions. So, conclusions. The proposed system for integrating intangible cultural heritage will not only eliminate the existing normative, legal, and methodological gap by ensuring the systematic incorporation of intangible cultural heritage into urban planning practice, but will also establish a new paradigm of sustainable urban environment. Within this paradigm, intangible cultural heritage become both a normative and digital factor in territorial planning and post-crisis urban and regional recovery, as well as fundamental driving force of cultural, social, and economic resilience. The implementation of this model will create the condition for shaping a culturally rich, sustainable, distinctive, competitive, and inclusive urban environment, fully aligned with international strategic framework, the new European Bauhaus, the urban agenda for EU, and another. This paves the way for the emergence of a fundamentally new paradigm in architectural and urban planning policy. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. And I believe you will have many questions about your topic. You have lots of to tell us.
For me, it's become normal.
And we invite you to, please, everybody who participated in this session with speeches, please take your seat. Yes, and the moderators come here, please.
start? I think you. Oh, yeah? Me. A fresh and new. So thank you very much, all presenters, for very inspiring presentations. They were quite different. At the same time, I really appreciate those which are connected to intangible cultural heritage, because I'm a very new participant of ICOMOS. It's only my first year, so I'm very sorry. And my background is cultural studies and intangible cultural heritage more. So also my questions probably would go to those who were involved in this topic. Anyway, Sophie, would you like to add something and to praise our presenters more than me?
Okay, I think that Ruta is more objective than me.
Oh, yeah.
And I prefer, yes, but in any case, we have seen many cases, different cases, from Japan, Yuishi, to the case of Greece, and our friend from here, Latvia. Sweden. Ah, you are Sweden. Okay.
From Sweden and Ukraine.
Yeah, and Ukraine. It is important. So now I understand better, because your abstract wasn't inside the book, and so now I understand better your communication. So, at my opinion, no. I think the most important topic in our session is the recovery plan. And we have different approaches. We have seen what has happened in Japan, in France. These countries have a very systematic planning and implemented planning, instead of Greece, that we have efforts, but not an overall planning about all these situations. So, and it is also your presentation. I like your name, please. Ghana. It is important. The material element is very important for a recovery plan. Anyway. My question is, at your opinion, what is the most important for a recovery plan? How we have to have in our mind, and as planners, as architects, and practitioners of the recovery after the disasters, earthquake, fires, flooding. We have seen the case of Nîmes in France from Antoine. Is very important. So this is my question. And
thank you for your questions. Of course, it's very important to revival of material environment, material cultural heritage, but important also parallel revival national identity of territory, and it should be key factor, because without this place that society have connection of conclusions and its value for social conclusions, we cannot recover this place, because this environment will be no like ours environment before war, before different crises that destroyed this environment. So we should in first recover this genetic memory of the place, whose have correlation with genetic memory of the national.
So could you be? Yeah. Could you be more precise regarding this concept of genetic memory of community?
Genetic memory of the national.
Yeah, what does it mean?
Genetic memory of the national, it's
like physiology.
Social value, social, it's a memory of the national. And it's folklore folklore. And he included all moral
Okay.
values, culture, traditional languages, and everything
see.
inside.
I see. So when you used also the concept of soul of the nation, is it in Herder sense or is something similar or more specific, especially with the connection regarding this urban environment you mentioned before? How it, because Herder, he applied it to rural environment. If you're using this soul of a nation, what does it mean?
The soul of the national is something that make mentality, formation of mentality.
Is it specific? It's in rural or urban environment? If you are talking about,
we should use this in urban environment because
Okay.
without this, we build and make environment for people.
Yeah.
And we should accept people not only like physical body and his needs, physical needs.
Sure.
We should accept also human as a spiritual.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you
element.
for explaining.
Yes.
Yeah, right. I have another question for Professor Fukukawa. Yes, I like very much your presentation also, and of course it's very important to have these traditional practices as a resilient techniques regarding all those earthquakes and fires and floods. But is there specific examples with these traditional building methods and practices proved even more resilient than modern techniques and technologies? More resilient to compare with modern
resilient.
technologies, you know, because now, of course, we have, we are preparing and all the modern technologies, they have to be resilient. But to compare with those traditional building practices, which one are more resilient? You demonstrated those Machia phenomena, but maybe there is more or examples with this.
There is a very, very big controversial discussion between the
of course,
the modern
and traditional.
modern structure method and the traditional building is very very strong,
resilience,
modern structure theory. So now the theory for the traditional building structure is so recognized, and the scientific diagnosis, the new calculation system is using now. So, but the calculation is very difficult.
Okay, that's right.
And the conclusion derived from the calculation is not so rational. So in small building cases, in like Kyoto, the calculation system are not used, and sound the building be sound is used.
Okay, thank you. Yep.
Yeah, I have more. I have a lot of questions. As a newcomer and neophyte, I have a lot of questions. But probably the audience.
The audience also, but my question remains for, it was addressed to all the participants. What is the most important factor for a recovery plan? And what about the role of decision makers? That is a general question. So it is addressed to all people. But if, Ruta, you like to...
I will ask probably personally, because audience, your title...
we have a limited time anyway, but we can continue the discussion during the
Yes, sure.
Yeah.
Just you can share your mic. And if you need
okay, so...
it's ours.
Like you saw from Antoine's presentation, prevention is very important, and having the documentation beforehand or doing it fast, like Professor Furukawa showed, doing the documentation and planning afterwards. Participation like of other stakeholders except for the state mechanisms. But in our case, it was very obvious in Greece that there is a big dilution of responsibility from the state. So some things we do in a performative way, like we have heritage, we have to do some propping up, even if we do one building after 5 years. It's not a results-oriented approach. It's just to just show we're doing something. So we have to streamline these processes and have all, both the inhabitants of the place and the government agencies collaborate and have some real procedures that are fast, because time is very essential in these cases.
For me, the most important is to give sense to the site and to make links between peoples and society and structure. The first work for us when we have to make the master plan is to make the story, to make dream for people. Because this is to involve them in the project. What is for you? What is heritage for you? How do you live it? This is for me really important, to find the good words to tell the value, to express what made the spirit of the place or the sense of the place. And with this, we can develop technicals, use and methodology. But the first is the value for me. And what made the value, what are the components and attributes, what is important. And we look at a transversal vision of heritage from territory, landscape, cultural landscape, you know, picturesque sometimes, and the poesy of the landscape, for the history of the site, the memory of the site, urban values, what is the specificity of the site, which are the specificities from the, you know, urban landscape also, or ambience urbaine. And after, in architecture, with this, its substance, you know, architecture is not only facade and roof, it's also distribution and scales and the decoration, interior decoration, and also the materials, wood and stone and stuccato and decoration, and all this remain the story of the site. Yes. This is important to share, to explain, to develop, and to, voila, for me.
Yeah, right. I would like to add that, speaking of Greece, we should take a step further from the policy of subsidies, because as we've seen in other catastrophes like the wildfires in North Evia in 2021, or the great floods of the Thessaly Plain 2 years ago, where I come from, everybody is looking for subsidy, and it's not in our mentality to have master plans and holistic aspect of the problem. I think this is the most complicated thing in Greece, and the cooperation of all the stakeholders, the private sector and the public sector. And it has to be changed in the minds of people and the inhabitants, that they don't need something today or tomorrow, but they have to think about their future in 20 years' time. And this is very difficult. Yes.
Okay, thank you. I think, I don't know if we have the time, how much time. Yeah, and the floor is the audience. If there are some...
They allowed us 5 minutes, but still we have them.
Thank you. I think they were extremely interesting presentations, all of yours, and to follow up, I would like to ask several questions. One is for Greece, your example. Was there any lessons learned about like the construction, the new constructions? Are they now earthquake-proof? Did they use the traditional methodology?
So 7 years is a very short time for the Greek public sector to even have like a reaction. But so we learned this lesson. We will try a little to, I don't know, find some alliances and try to overhaul the system, but it's not at all in the radar of the government or of the authorities, even though we did some like conference at the beginning. All the new constructions were in concrete, reinforced concrete, because the traditional were too expensive and also could not be up to code easily, because we have very strict seismic code in Greece, and it's there are very few engineers to do this and very few constructors especially in such a remote part of this remote island. You cannot understand how difficult it is to find actual people to do this. I didn't mention it, but the windows are made mostly in Poland because they have to be wooden windows, but there are no artisans anymore doing them. So I don't know, lessons will be learned in a long-term prospect, and we have to fight for it.
Yeah, I also noticed that in Japan, you have made like lessons learned guidelines, and there's lessons learned guidelines in Turkey, but how they are spread in the world so that everybody can really learn about them, that's an issue. And about, I think also...
the scientific community knows about this, but they don't reach like the top level of governance.
Exactly.
I have a comment on the question of rebuild. Because in Bayonne, we had to make a new facade in the court. So we decided to make new architecture, not to imitate. And we had to make new architecture that respects the spirit of place, to find new use for wood building and stone building and sometimes bricks or concrete, but not only. And we have to make a new page of the story, not only imitation. This is a question for me.
No, it's a big question, it's true.
At the end of the day, it's, as your example showed very well, it's about money, how the money is given out.
It's not about money, because about 45 million euros were earmarked for these subsidies. Yeah. It's not little money. No. I don't know how much of this was taken in the end, but it was a big sum. Just the public sector did not want to have any responsibility.
Exactly, exactly. The money is always there, but the way how they are sharing it, it's a question. And also the documents, and I'm just taking this situation. I've been representing ICOMOS in the working group of the European Commission to draft the recommendations for reconstruction of Ukraine to safeguard cultural heritage. We made a brilliant document. It was 26 experts from different organizations, but it's going nowhere. So I'm promoting it to Ghana. Use this. It's an official European Commission statement. Promote it, use it. I think it touches very much also your point on intangible heritage and the spirit of the place. I can share it later.
Yeah. Thank you. So it was the last question. And so we can close the panel, but is there any questions more?
Okay. So, yeah, we can close.
So we can close this session. I think that our Vice President of ICOMOS for Europe, Rin, has a lot of proposals and ideas from this session. And we are going to close also, Paula, the meeting. So I would like to thank everybody who participated today and yesterday. And again, thanks to ICOMOS Latvia, CIVVIH, and the organizing committee, and all of you. Thank you all. Thank you. Paula.
Okay. You can hear me? Yeah, okay. Well, dear colleagues, dear participants, time flies. We are already at the closing of our 2.5 session. It's been an inspiring and thought-provoking gathering, and I would like to begin by sincerely thanking each and every one of you for your presence, your instincts, and your contributions that have made this conference such a meaningful experience. Over 1.5 days, under the overarching theme Living Heritage, we have explored strategies for enhancing the resilience of historical cities in the face of disaster and rapid change. What became immediately clear is that historical towns, either in Latvia, Norway, Lebanon, or elsewhere, are not just a collection of old buildings, they are living environments. They evolve, they breathe, and they adapt. And that means our approach to preservation must also evolve and adapt. We are not simply protecting the past, we are shaping the future through heritage. Preservation must be adaptive. We have seen how towns like Kuldīga and Hamamun have adapted over time. We have also seen how wooden settlements in Norway or mud bricks architecture in Lebanon are being revived, not only physically, but socially and economically, by reactivating traditional knowledge. These stories remind us heritage is only alive when people are part of it. Which brings us to the other central theme, the power of traditional skills. From Norway to France, Guyana, to the Kwai Heritage Revival Project, we heard how traditional craftsmanship isn't just about materials or methods, it's also about identity, appropriation, about resilience, and about continuity. At the same time, we have seen examples of community participation, a critical factor for a successful conservation effort, either in Munich or Rennes, or even in the personal story of restoring a simple wooden house here in Kuldīga, in Talsi. Sorry. We are reminded that real change often starts at the local level with people who care. Let's be clear, community involvement is not an option, it's essential. It ensures that heritage is not something done to people, but with them. It honors them, their knowledge, their lived experience, and their connection to place. Now we are also facing the reality of climate change, and it's not longer a distant concern. It's already impacting our historic cities and landscape, from fires and floods in France and Greece to urban disasters in Japan and Turkey. The threats are increasing. But within this challenge lies a potential opportunity. Historic urban areas are often held by key to climate adaptation. We saw this in the Big Green Project, which used nature-based solutions in Mediterranean cities, in the use of traditional climate resilience and building technologies, and in the available of intangible practices that offer flexible, sustainable ways to reuse and reinterpret heritage. In other words, tradition is not the opposite of innovation, it's inspiring, it's the foundation of it. However, our discussions also highlighted new and urgent threats, not only from natural disasters, but from our own decisions. Uncontrolled development, excessive tourism, and poorly planned urban policies are now among the great threats to heritage resilience. In Munich, for instance, we saw how high-rise construction can disrupt not only skylines, but the very identity of the city. In Greece, we heard how excessive construction and tourism expansion are eroding the environmental and cultural capacity of sensitive cities. There is a strong call for better balance, for planning that respects heritage, identity, and environmental values. And perhaps one of the most moving threads through this conference was the emphasis on intangible cultural heritage. The spirit of the place, the stories, the memories, the names, the skills, and the meaning that animates our building environment. These elements are not side stories. They strengthen social cohesion, guide post-crisis recovery, and help us hold out identity in times of change. So, what we take away from all of this? Across all the presentations, a shared call for action emerged. We need training and capacity building, especially in traditional construction skills, inclusive collaboration governments involving residents, professionals, and civil society, modern adaptable politic tools for disaster risk management and conservation, a strong scientific research and interdisciplinary models to guide long-term sustainability decisions, and funding for equity. And it's important to note, maybe, that those tools already exist, but we need to try to bring them to the local level. The challenge now is not inventing, it's implementation. It's about political will, share responsibility, and to encourage the action. We see promising examples in France and elsewhere. The knowledge is there, the methods are there. What needs is the collective commitment to put them in practice. In conclusion, we are in the turning point, and new ways need to be engaged, involving all the actors, specialists, communities, and also. This conference has confirmed something very important. Our historic cities, towns, and villages are not fragile relics. They are living laboratories of resilience. They are home to stories, to memory, to identity, and they are shaped not only by time, but by people who can care of them. So let us live here today with a renewed sense of purpose, not only to protect heritage, but to live it, to share it, and sustain it together. I would like again to thank to our host, the municipality of Kuldīga, and of course to the organizers, the ICOMOS Latvia, and our colleagues from Latvia, from CIVVIH Latvia. Thank you to all.
And thank you every day from me as well. Thank you. It was so interesting to meet you all, to listen to you all, to listen to your experiences. And also it was very interesting the way you shared it, because it was really your experience. And now the conference is over and the annual meeting is over. And now it's time for lunch. So we all will go for lunch, and after lunch, it's supposed to be at 2 o'clock, but we'll see how we go with the time. Jana most probably will coordinate the time. There will be a sightseeing tour around Kuldīga by Jana. We will meet at 2 o'clock at the town hall, where the reception of the mayor was last night, but outside the tour will start. Most probably some minute after 2, we will not manage by 2 o'clock, but since we're going to be together, most probably then we'll manage a time. So you have to take all your belongings from here. We will not come back here. But you will be able to leave your stuff at the hotel in the meeting room, because there will be, after the tour, the meeting will be there. So, if any other questions, please ask Jana or other persons. I will also go for lunch with you. Okay, good luck to you to stay in Kuldīga and in Latvia, and we will be happy to see you again.
And thank you to Teresa for your